look at entering and editing formulas. Okay? Now, what is a formula? A formula basically is taking, just like you would have a formula in mathematics, Excel was originally developed to do just that, to track math. It is a mathematical tool. We said earlier in our introduction that it differs from products such as Word and others, that Word and PowerPoint are primarily focused on entering text and formatting text and displaying text and so on and so forth. Excel is developed primarily for the purposes of mathematical equations, doing mathematical tasks, adding up columns of data, sorting data, displaying data, producing graphs. All those things are what Excel is set up to do, which is what we talked about earlier. Now we're going to look at building formulas. Now a formula is simply this. A formula says that I want to take some information, some numerical data, and I want to manipulate this data. I either want to add it up, I want to divide, I want to do some different things with this data to give me some sort of result. If you remember when you went through school, and for some of you like me, that's may have been a few years ago, but if you remember, we went through mathematics and we learned about different operators. Now, an operator is just a symbol that when applied to two or more numbers, it has a certain effect. For instance, you have the plus sign, which is the addition operator, and addition simply just takes the two numbers and adds them up. So if you would, turn in your books to page 2-10, and at the top of page 2-10 you'll see a chart, and on this chart or this table are a list of the operators that Excel uses that you will use to build a formula in Excel. Everybody see that? Okay, great. Now, if you look on your keypad, on your keyboard, to the very right-hand side where your numbers are, it's called the 10-key number pad. That is located at the right-hand portion of your screen, of your keyboard. If you do not have a 10-key on your keyboard, then across the top of your text, yes, across the very top where the numbers are, you will see these symbols across the top. You get those symbols by holding down the Shift key and typing the corresponding letter. For instance, if we wanted to enter the plus sign to do an addition, we would hold down the Shift key and press the equal sign. And you can see that is right next to the backspace key at the top of your keyboard. Yes, right there. Okay, so that is where that is located. The other place that it's located is to the right again on that 10-key keypad, and you'll see it at it's one of the larger keys there to the right, just above the Enter key. Okay? Now, if you look at your chart, you'll notice that the addition does just that. The plus sign adds things together. So that's located there on the number pad. I'm going to refer to the number pad for the most part because I believe everyone in here has a number pad on their keyboard. So just above the plus sign is the minus sign. The minus sign is used for subtraction, subtracting two numbers. And if you look in your book, you can see that the subtraction, there's an example there of A7 minus A9. Now, who knows what those are? The A7 and the A9 are. Yeah, that's right. Those are cell references. That's going to take the data, the information that's in cell A7, and subtract cell A9's value from it. So that's what that subtraction does for us. Okay. Next, if you look just to the left of the minus sign on the keypad, there is an asterisk, or it looks like a little star. That's an asterisk. That's also located above the number 8 on the keyboard, on the numbers across the top of your keyboard. And you would get that by holding the Shift and pressing the 8 key to get the asterisk, or simply pressing the asterisk on the keypad. So there we have the asterisk, which is used for multiplication. Next to the multiplication, just to the left, is the division sign. This division sign does just that. It's that backslash line there, backward slash line there, that enables us to do division. Okay? And you see the example there, A7 divided by A9. Next is percent. There's not a percent symbol on your 10-key keypad, but there is one on the keyboard itself, which is just above the number 5. So if you hold the Shift key and press the number 5, you will get the percent sign. And then lastly is the exponent. An exponent is to take a number and raise it to a certain power or multiply it by itself that number of times. The example that's given in the book is 5 raised to the power of 3. That exponential is what we call a caret top. That is also not on the keypad. It is on the top row there above the number 6. So holding down the shift key and pressing number 6 will get us the caret, and that raises that number to a power. So this would raise 5 to a power of 3, which means, as you can see, 5 times 5 times 5. Okay? Now, you'll also notice that in the examples, just down the right-hand side of your chart, that all of those formulas have something in common. Yes, they all have an equal sign at the beginning. Now, the equal sign is located just to the left of the backspace on the keyboard. So anytime we're entering in a formula, all formulas are going to begin the same way with the equal sign. Okay? So let's open up, if we will, the sales workbook. And you can accomplish it by opening it several ways. You can click on the Office button, which is located in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. And you can choose Open there. And you can navigate to our folder, which we're in Unit 2. Navigate to Unit 2. And then we can open that either by double-clicking the cells. Now, as I said earlier, a little trick here is if anytime you want to open up a file, it's a good idea to click on the icon next to the file and not the file name, because if you don't double-click fast enough, what you'll get is you'll actually put you in editing or renaming that file name. So you want to make sure that if you're going to use that method, you're going to double-click on the icon. So we're going to double-click the icon there. Or you can choose Open at the bottom of the screen. It's going to open up the sales workbook for us. Now, my screen is very small. I'm going to show you some shortcuts, as I mentioned earlier today, that as we go through this, that I've been doing this a while, so I have a lot of shortcuts, some of which are in the book, some of which are not. So make sure you have a pencil handy so that you can write some of these things down. But so that you can see my screen easier, I'm going to zoom in. Now, there's the quickest way to do that is using the scroll wheel on your mouse. If you hold down the Control key and at the same time scroll towards the screen, as you can see, it zooms in. If I hold the Control key down and roll the wheel towards me, away from the screen, it zooms out. So I'm going to zoom in so that you can see the screen a little better. Now, what you notice is this is a spreadsheet for bonus sales in the northern region for our fictitious company, Outlander Spices, which we're going to see over and over and over again. And later on, you'll see that there's actually some, in the word class, when we do the word class, you'll see that there are some, that Outlander Spices has some pretty good recipes in there. I've had students in class before that wanted to go home and try them out. They ask, are these real? And yes, they are real. So these are not real sales numbers. So let's look at this. Now, what we have is we have bonus sales in the northern region. And you can see that we have, in column A, we have a name, an employee number in the next column, at quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the corresponding columns there. You also notice that in column G, we have totals, but there are no totals here yet. So if we want to put a total in there, what would be the first way you would think of putting it in there? Just adding them up. Yes, just go through, get out your calculator, or do it in your head if you're that good at math, and just add up quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4, and just type in the result into the total. But what happens if in quarter 3 we increase that by $1,000? Now what do? Yes, you have to go and you have to change your total. You have to retype your total in the total column there. Now, the beauty of a formula, this is why it's so nice to have technology, is what this enables us to do is we can let Excel do all the math for us. That's why we're writing formulas. If you're like me, you can do math on a calculator, but when you try to do it in your head, you get a little confused. Well, maybe you're not like me, but I'm that way anyway. So what this enables us to do is it enables us to allow Excel to calculate for us any changes. So at any time any of these numbers change, if we come back next year and start entering in new quarter information, or we enter in a new salesperson, we can have Excel calculate these big numbers for us so that it knows. Addition is no big deal, but what if we were taking the average sales? It'd be a little more difficult to do manually, right? So we're going to look at doing that as well. We'll look at doing that later. That's actually what's called a function, and we're going to look at functions next. But for now, let's look at entering in a total, a formula to get the total for Kendra James. So if you would, let's select cell, or navigate to cell G5. And in cell G5, how does a formula start? Yes, all formulas start with the equal sign. So we're going to type in the equal sign first. Then we're just going to type in the cell reference to the cell that we're wanting to add up, because we're going to use the addition here. So I'm going to type in where is Kendra James's quarter 1 sales? C5. Okay, so we're going to type in C5. Notice as I type C5 that it turns the reference here to blue. And then there's also a blue square down here around C5. That indicates to me that this reference corresponds to that number. So I can see, I have a visual effect of what I'm actually typing in. So now I have C5, I'm just going to type a plus sign. And then I'm going to type in D5, another plus sign, and I'm going to type in E5. And notice as I type that the color reference of the cell reference that I'm typing in here is changed. And then there's also a corresponding box that shows up showing that reference. And then finally, a plus sign and an F5 to end my formula and have Excel display the value of that formula. I'm just going to press Enter, or we can click the Enter check up here next to the formula bar. If we do that, it keeps our focus on that current cell. It doesn't move off of it, which is what happens when we hit the Enter key. So now we see that what we've got is we've got the total for quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4 for Kendra James. Excel has gone out and calculated for us, thank goodness, $23,442. Okay, sounds right. It is right. Now, so let's do this. Let's go in and let's update our data so that we can see how Excel is going to update the results in that cell. So let's go to quarter 3 for Kendra James on E5, and we're going to change 3,958 to 4,958. Effectively, we're going to add $1,000 to our total. So I'm just going to use F2 to put me in edit mode. I'm going to go back to the beginning and delete out the 3 and change it to a 4. And now, as soon as I leave the cell, watch how it's going to update. Right now it's $23,442. I've added $1,000, and when I press Enter, it now changes my total to $24,442, increasing my total by $1,000. That is what is so cool about formulas. Pretty cool, huh? Well, it gets even cooler. Okay, we can actually, there's a second way. As we said earlier, there's generally there's multiple ways of entering data and getting the same results. So if you'll turn over to page 2-12 in your book, we're going to enter the cell references. Let's go to cell G5 again so that we can see in our formula bar what our formula is. It's C5 plus D5 plus E5 plus F5. Okay? Now, what that's done is it summed those things up for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to enter in basically the same formula with different references. We're going to reference row 6 this time because we're going to add it up for Pamela Carter. But instead of typing in the cell references, instead of typing in C5 and D5, E5, and F5, I'm going to use my mouse to select those cells, and Excel will actually insert the cell reference for me. So let's move down to G6, and how does every formula begin? With an equal sign. So let's type an equal first. And now using your mouse, instead of typing in C6, we're going to click on C6. And notice when I do, it automatically inserts C6 again with a blue reference. Now I can't see the blue reference as much. I can only see the corners of it flashing because it's actually selected with that Excel dashed selection line there. I'm going to type a plus sign. Now you can see the blue square. I'm going to select D6, and notice I don't have to keep going back to that active cell where I'm typing in my formula. Each time I click, it keeps my cursor here so that I can stay active in there and I can just continue to type to enter in those operators. So now I have D6. I'm going to click on E6, plus sign, and then F6. Okay? And now I have C6, D6, plus E6, plus F6, right? So these are all basically the same formula that I entered in above it, but instead of looking at row 5, I'm now looking at row 6. So here we've entered them in with the mouse. So just press an Enter key, and now that gives us the results for Pamela Carter.